Hi everyone, welcome to my 30-minute workout series, and today I will be covering the core exercises. I have 7 of such exercises, and the beauty about these exercises is the anterior and the posterior both muscles work in tandem. So we are doing something called as a co-contraction exercise. Yes, your agonist, which is your working muscle, and your antagonist, which is your opposite muscle, work simultaneously. And this mostly happens when you do a proper core training workout. So bring on your mats and let's get started with the exercises. So the first exercise of this series happens to be a dead bug. I will be demonstrating to you dead bug in 3 manners. One is the ipsilateral, second is the contralateral, and the third one is a resisted dead bug. So let me demonstrate to you a few reps of each. To perform this exercise, you need to be in a supine position. Bend your knees and your hips. Your hips need to flex at 90 degrees. Knees need to flex at 90 degrees to start this position. Maintain a posterior pelvic tilt. Get into a shoulder flexion where your wrist is in line with the shoulder. The movement right now which I am doing is a contralateral movement. So I'm going to move my right hand and left leg. So it is this. I have to constantly keep breathing because my anterior and my posterior, both musculatures of the core are working. So this movement is called as a contralateral. Now, if I want to do the ipsilateral movement, I will be moving the same hand and same leg, maintaining other core activation points. Try not to move the non-moving limbs. So this is how you do the contralateral and the ipsilateral. Now, if you want to add more resistance to this exercise, the resistance can be brought from a lateral angle. So what you do is, I have held a resistance tube. I'm holding it, try to hold it right in the center. So if you give in to the resistance, your shoulders are going to move there. So try and stay here and do an alternate or a single leg, whichever you are comfortable with, whatever the goal is, whatever you want to train. So this is how you can do the dead bug in a contralateral manner, in an ipsilateral manner, and a resisted manner. The next exercise is again on the mat in a supine position. It's called the horizontal scissors. The reason why I have given you a horizontal movement is because most of your daily activities are in the sagittal plane. So this particular movement is in a transverse or a horizontal plane, which is working on the core musculature. So let me demonstrate to you 5 reps of this exercise, and then I'll talk more about it. Again, lie down in a supine position. Bend your knees and then take your legs up. Now, depending upon your lower back strength, your hamstring flexibility and mobility around your posterior chain, you will either keep the leg here, there, or lower, but make sure that your lower back is not arching. So maintain a posterior pelvic tilt, then lift your legs up, and then try and form a C with your legs to an extent that the knees remain straight and the movement is happening only and only from the hip. So you're doing a horizontal movement, and this is how you do the horizontal scissors. You can also do the vertical ones, but if you have been doing something or an exercise which is more vertical like the dead bug before, try to incorporate a horizontal movement in your routine. This is how you do the horizontal scissors. The next exercise which follows is a side plank. Now, as the name suggests, a side plank, you're lying down on your side and you're working majority of your lateral muscles, which is your obliques. The previous 2 exercises which you saw, they were working mostly the anterior and the posterior section. of course, the lateral parts act as stabilizers. In this one, the lateral part is actively working and the anterior and the posterior act as stabilizers. So this exercise can be done in n number of ways, in n number of regressions and progressions. I will be showing you the regressed version to the progressed version. Of course, sky is the limit when it comes to progression, but just 3 progressions which you can do on the mat, and then you can take it ahead from there. The important point here is that you are lying down in a side lying position. Always, if you have a mat like this, use it as a guideline to keep your elbow, hip, knee and ankle in a straight line. But right now I'm demonstrating to you the regressed version where I will be bending both my knees. So I will be reducing the lever length, and in this position I will be keeping my elbow in line with the shoulder, which is very important, and just lifting the hip up to a point where my shoulder, hip and knee are in a straight line. Head has to be neutral as well, shouldn't be extended, laterally flexed or so. So keep it neutral, and you can either do it for time or you can do reps depending upon the goal. If you have mastered this, then you can progress to a little higher version, which is where I have straightened my upper leg. If you have done that, then you can have a staggered stance where your base of support is more and lift your hip up. If that is mastered, then you can reduce your base of support and one foot on top of the other and maintain that same position. Then if you want to progress, you can take your hand up, you can take your leg up, either do a static or do dynamic, work on both the sides equally, and this is how you do a side plank on the floor. So the next exercise of this series happens to be the Pallof press. Yes, the name sounds very fancy, but this exercise is very good for your lateral musculature. Your anterior and the posterior do act as stabilizers in this, and the whole body is involved in this exercise. This can be done in different exercise positions like a standing position, a partial squat position, in a lunge position, in a half kneeling position or a kneeling position. So depending upon your needs, you will get into that exercise position and do that exercise. I will be demonstrating to you few reps of each. So let's get started. First and foremost, you need a resistance from a lateral aspect. So you can do this particular exercise on a cable machine, or you can just use this particular equipment like a resistance tube or a Superman. Now comes the position. So if I am doing it in a partial squat position, my starting position is here, where my wrists are in front of the chest. I bring the hand, wrist in front, right in the center of the chest, and I take it in front. No other body part is moving except my shoulder and my elbows. I have to try and follow this same straight path when I'm doing my stipulated reps. If I have to do it in a lunge position, I have to get my position right first, because that's going to be more challenging than doing this particular movement. If need be, get into a half kneeling position and do the same. If need be, get into a full kneeling position and do the same. The idea is, because the resistance is coming from a lateral aspect, you will be working more of your lateral musculature. Of course, the anterior and the posterior will act as stabilizers. You have to repeat the same with the other side as well, and this is how you do the Pallof presses. So the next exercise in this series happens to be a Russian twist. Now I will be demonstrating to you Russian twist on the floor. Of course, it can be done in a seated position as well, but this is more safer. The important thing is, to do the Russian twist, you need to have a good V-sit position, or mastering the V-sit position. So the V-sit position is where I keep my feet shoulder width apart, get into a position where I'm sitting on my sitting bone, which is my ischium, rather than sitting on my sacrum. So this is the right way to sit. This is a wrong way to sit. So please sit upright, lean back to a point where you can master this position for time. Try not to flex from your lower back. Of course, the actual position is where you lift your legs up. Depending upon the strength of your core musculature and your posture and your form and technique, you will either keep the feet on the floor or you keep it in the air, and then you do a rotation. Now that rotation, as I said, is happening from your thoracic. So I'm going to do the regressed version where I keep the heels on the floor, interlace my fingers, and rotate slowly and in a range where I can maintain my form. No point in going too wide and losing your lumbar curvature. So if you start rounding, that's going to be bad. So what you can do is maybe use a black roll or any equipment here, stabilize your lower body and rotate, but please make sure that the movement is slow and controlled rather than fast and uncontrolled. So this is how you do the Russian twist on the floor. So guys, the next exercise in our series happens to be a wood chop. Now there is a lot of confusion about the wood chop. Basically, it is a rotatory movement. Now, depending upon who you are, whether you are an athlete or a general population or a fitness enthusiast, you will pick and choose which way to do the wood chop. Wood chop is broadly divided into two parts. One is where the whole body is involved. So if you see the movement which I am doing, I am involving my lower body. I am doing a pivoting movement from my foot. My knees are soft. They are turning as well. So they are being protected. And the other movement is where I don't do anything from the lower body. I stabilize it and just rotate from my upper body. Now I'll be doing few reps of this with a resistance, which is a resistance tube, or you can do it on a cable as well. So the first one is, imagine if I'm an athlete and if I have to do rotatory movement where I involve and generate force from the hip and the oblique region. Now, if I want to just work on the axial skeleton region and stabilize my lower body, then I will just do this movement. Of course, the range of motion here is lesser, but this is making me dissociate my thoracic region from my lumbar region. There are other ways where people do wood chops, which is from top to bottom or from side to side or from bottom to top. Now, depending upon the need, you will give them those prescriptions. This is how you do the wood chops. So the last exercise of this series happens to be a bird dog. Now, you must have seen the bird dog normally being performed on the floor, but I will be demonstrating to you a little challenging version on the bench. Of course, because the bench is of a smaller surface area, the stability factor will increase. So if you cannot balance yourself here, please go on the floor and do the bird dog. The normal bird dog movement is, of course, the wrist and the shoulder is in a straight line, the knee and the hip is in a straight line, and a usual movement would be this. You can either hold it for time or you can do reps depending upon your goal. So what I'm going to demonstrate to you is involve two planes simultaneously. So my hand is going to do a horizontal movement and my leg is going to do a sagittal movement. So I am doing this and coming down. So horizontal abduction and hip flexion, knee flexion. Try to practice this. Of course, you have this as an easier version. Try to do it on the other side. As I said, this is more challenging because you're utilizing just the bench area. If this is difficult, practice it on the floor and then progress onto the bench. And this is how you do the modified bird dog or a multi-plane bird dog. So guys, these were my 7 exercises for the core. It did involve the anterior, the posterior, the lateral versions completely. Please try these exercises. Some of them can be done for time, some of them can be done for reps. You can do as little as 4 reps, 5 reps, provided your form and technique is maintained. Also, if you master these exercises, when you go to your global exercises like your chest press or a squat, lat pull down, etc., etc., because your core musculature is strong through these exercises, you will be able to perform those superficial muscle exercises much better. So please try these exercises and do let me know how the experience was. Until next time, see you soon. Bye bye.